Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for a brand new unboxing video. And before we get cracking, you'll find a link to TF Source's listing for today's toy in the video description. So when you're done here, why not pop on over and have a little gander? Especially as it's quite a gripping choice for today's subject. Here is the alluring orange architect himself. It's Earthrise Grapple. Right, well here we are with Grapple, and my wife's just brought me a cup of tea, so it's a great time to get cracking with this review. And really excited about this one actually. I saw it in hand first in a toy shop in the UK, where I am, and really loved the look of it straight away. And I think that was probably the point, I was with my son at the time, and I think that was probably the point where I went, yeah, I might have to check this out at some point. And now here it is. Looks really, really cool. Really nice artwork on the side as well, and of course some promo shots on the back. So yeah, well up for this one. And just love the character too, just that kind of snarky architect thing that he's got going on. Very, very cool. I don't know, I make this point a lot, but I just like that in the G1 cartoon anyway, and the comic, that a lot of the heroes weren't your traditional, you know, just kind of jocks and your traditional hero types, that they were kind of a bit more varied than that, and Grapple's a great example. So that looks really, really cool already. So yeah, in the box you have the toy, his little gun, and this little kind of crane accessory as well. And of course this guy looks, as expected, very, very orange. It's a very saturated orange actually, really, really nice. Might be the same orange as Hoist, just looking at them, he's to my side, but we'll do a comparison in coming up. But yeah, overall, certainly a good representation of the character. You know, it looks as you would expect. Nice proportions on the robot mode. Looks to be some decent paint, but we'll get a close-up on that in just a second. And overall, yeah, very fitting representation of the character. Right, let's get in on this guy, shall we? So here's the head sculpt, and of course his noggin is orange, same as the rest of his body. Some people will like that because it's very G1 cartoon accurate. Some people will not, because the G1 toy had a black head, or a black helmet, you might say. But I think it actually looks pretty good. Face is silver, and the eyes are blue, look very nice and sparkly. I will say there's a kind of weird gap in between the eyes and the face, which is almost kind of letting a bit of light through. Hence you can see on his right eye there, it kind of creates this slightly weird effect. It's an odd one, I have to say. But overall, you know what, nice face sculpt, think it looks good. Decent representation of the character again. And then coming down onto the chest section, you've got some nice detailing going on here. Of course, all stuff like the windscreen wipers and the wing mirrors is all unpainted, but you do have a slight little use of translucent plastic for these lights just there on top, which is really, really cool. I'm assuming that it's all part of the same molded piece as the windscreen. So I think that's a very clever little use. You can actually see a little line running along the top there, which kind of confirms that that's probably the case. And I think it's a nice bit of design in order to get those lights done like that and not just have them be orange as well. So that's kind of appreciated. And then moving just slightly over to the side, of course, he does have a little translucent blue for the lights as well. So I'm guessing it's all part of the same mold. That looks really cool. Not too impressed with the silver paint going on here though, because I mean, firstly on the light section itself, it looks a little bit rough, you know, and there's not very sort of evenly applied. And then just underneath here on the bumper, I don't know if you can see that, but there's quite a distinct scratch in the paintwork straight out the box. So that's disappointing, to say the least. You can see the orange just showing through there. And if I'm honest, you know, I am seeing more and more a few kind of paint flaws like this on some of these Earthrise toys, and yeah, bit subpar that to my eye. I will say, as well as the paint, there's some weird denting or crumpling just on the Autobot logo on his chest there as well. I've tried to position it to show it off as best as I can, but I will be honest, it is fairly noticeable in hand, and that's not good quality control, let's be honest. Kind of a similar story just down here on the thighs. He's got these little kind of nub bits that sit out, you know, on the sides of his legs. Very classic part of Grapple's design, so that's appreciated. And I like that they have painted them. And actually the paint, I will say, is a decent colour match for the bare plastic just here that covers most of his body. So you haven't got the old, necessarily the old sunstreaker problem of two different shades. It's a fairly decent colour match. Not exact, but decent. But then there is a bit of a paint scratch on top there as well. It's very small, but it is noticeable. And actually talking about colour matching, you can see here, this is on his arms, this is just his bicep just there. There is definitely some colour differences going on between different panels, which is a real shame. I don't know why it's not just one consistent colour, because actually this section here, the bicep, just ends up looking a little bit pale and washed out by comparison, so weird choice. Now coming around to the back, you've got his massive crane just hanging off the back of his head, which must hurt, right? It must be a bit painful for him, I don't know. But and then he's got his little weapon here, which will tab in place of his hand. Classic part of Grapple's design again. And really like these little bits on his shoulders as well. That's a nice nod to the G1 toy again, and looks really cool in painted silver. Now coming down to the rest of the legs, of course, you've got some very nice molded detail going on here. Little silver sections for these stabilizers, and the paint on these wheels is not too bad actually. It's fairly thinly applied, like you can see the black kind of creeping through the orange paint, but it's okay. Right, well let's go ahead and check out articulation. And firstly, the head is not on a ball joint, it's just on a peg, so it only swivels from side to side. He can't look up or down, which is a little bit of a shame, not a massive problem. The shoulders, obviously it will go all the way around like so, and can flay out to the side. And then with the elbows, they go just a little bit over 90 degrees. And there is a bicep swivel as well, because it's on a little mushroom peg. Hands, there is no articulation at the hands, which I'm surprised by, actually. I might have factored in a waist again, there I go again, man. Wrist swivel. Every time I seem to say waist instead of wrist. What is wrong with me? Anyway, there's no wrist swivel, which I might have expected actually, if I'm completely honest. That is a little bit of a shame. And then of course you've got quite a fairly sizable hollow section in the arms as well. On the lower half, you've got a waist swivel, there we go. And of course the hips, very similar to a lot of Earthrise toys it seems, they just kind of bend up like that. Way preferable to hip flap, so really like that in terms of design. That will go just a smidge above 90, so there you go. And the knees go to 90 as well, and then of course you've got a bit of ankle tilt, which is very stiff indeed, but there you go. So we'll get him all posed up. First thing is to get that gun in his hand, which is a very tight fit indeed. And then let's take that little cannon accessory off the back, and then you just want to quite simply fold the hand into the arm like so, get it the whole way, and then that just pegs in like that. And yeah, here he is, all weaponed up, all posed up, and looking, yeah, pretty good actually, I have to say. I really do like the look of him a lot. I think he's decent representation of the character, decent kind of reminiscent feeling of the G1 toy as well. And does look good. Feels quite stable as well. I mean, the big old feet obviously help with that. That's just, a sort of inherent part of Grapple's design, but it is a good thing here. This arm, I feel like it could be a little bit tighter. It's not too bad. It's just got, you can see just there, that little bit of give in the joint, which is slightly unfortunate. I do like as well that it's not intended, I'm sure, but that you can kind of butterfly the joints for transformation just slightly at the shoulders as well, and that just kind of gives that little bit of extra little something. But he poses very nicely. I do wish that the head could look up. That's a killer for me. I do find a lot of poses just kind of look better when they can, the figures can look where you want them to. That's the only thing, but it's not a deal breaker. But hey, he can pull off a kneel. That's pretty good. I've got to say, any toy that can do a kneel, I'm generally pretty happy. It's like one of my go-to poses. Now, there is also a bit of additional storage for the kind of crane piece that you get with him as well for his vehicle mode, and that will just tab into, there we go, into the side of his, kind of the backpack bit there. And yeah. Is that good? I don't know what to make of that. It's not the most eloquent or graceful weapon storage I've ever seen. Let's put it that way. I guess it's an option, right? It's an option. Nice to have options. Let's be positive about it. It's nice to have options. That's what I will say. On the whole, and it's a decent robot mode. I'm a little bit put off by some of the paint and things, how it presents, but on the whole, yeah, decent design at least. And he does look very nice with my old boy Hoist, which I've also just reviewed on the channel, so do check that out. And these two back together again, there you go, partners in crime. Not really, but good friends and sort of annoying each other at the same time, but hey. And there you go, I do think that these two work really well together. I'm surprised to see that Hoist is so large, if anything, versus Grapple, but I don't know, maybe that's just my mind's eye. I always picture him being a bit smaller, but they do look good together. Then, of course, another fun comparison to do is with these chaps in G1 form. There you go. So that's G1 Grapple and G1 Hoist. Fantastic pair of toys. And again, very nicely updated for Earthrise. Decent interpretations of the characters. what can I say? They go together like two things that go really well together. You think of your own analogy, I don't know. Of course, the biggest difference with the G1 toy stylistically is the head color, but otherwise, you know what, it matches up really nicely. It's definitely a closer vibe to the G1 cartoon, let's say that. And that's in keeping with the official Takara Tomy Masterpiece toy as well, which follows suit. And yeah, here you go, 3 different interpretations of the same character, all looking very different. And you know, by now I'm sure most of you know I absolutely love Masterpiece, but this is actually one of my favorites. Just such a fantastic figure. The painted finish and everything, to me, just is unbeatable. Looks really, really nice. Earthrise Grapple, very different orange actually, much more, slightly darker, like a little bit more saturated as well. If anything, the G1 toy has got the least saturated orange of all 3, which is interesting to see. It's a little bit paler. For me, for my money, the nicest color on all 3 of them is the Masterpiece. But you know, they all do their different things well. 3 great toys. Anyway, let's go ahead and check out Transformation and get them into vehicle mode. Okay, transformation done, and it's all pretty simple really. What can I say? It's actually highly reminiscent of the G1 toy, which is really interesting, particularly the way that the head folds into this little box just there, the way that flips up and all of that. That is just the G1 toy, what can I say? It was like, when I was doing it, I was thinking, my God, it's like being 5 years old again. Similarly with the way that the arms just kind of fold back and stow on the sides. Everything else. I guess when you think about it, there realistically are only so many ways that you can kind of do Grapple's transformation, on principle at least. I mean, the Masterpiece is, I'm just going to say it, one of the best transformations on any toy, hands down, that I've ever seen. The way that the crane folds into the body and whatever else, just exceptionally good. This doesn't do any of that. This just keeps it really simple. Stuff goes exactly where you would expect it to, but still, it works. Now, I was of course keen to pay particular attention to these little tabs just here that go into the bottom of his feet, because, well, let's just be honest, numerous people, lots and lots of people online, lots of collectors have had terrible trouble with this, because they obviously, you know, are a bit fragile and snap off. You know, I was going to say if you're not careful, but I think even then, you know, it's a big risk, big risk. So I have been careful with mine. They do go in quite solidly, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. I'm not going to lie. Lots of people, you know, talking about like shaving them down to make them a little bit smaller to fit, you know, maybe not so snugly, whatever else. I've just gone for it. So we'll see what the result of that is maybe another time. But yeah, nerve-wracking stuff, needless to say, one to watch out for. And on the whole, I do think that this vehicle mode looks pretty good, actually. I think it's a nice representation of a crane. I mean, you know what it is, right? Like, you just look at it and you think crane. The legs, the upper legs do stick out a little bit here with the sort of black, but yeah, that's absolutely fine. Actually, I do think that this little yellow, orange little nub on the side of his leg comes into play quite nicely there. That looks like it's sort of quite purposeful. The wheels don't look too bad there. Yeah, it hangs together quite nicely actually. Even the arms, which actually can stick out quite a bit on a lot of Grapple designs, they look quite purposeful if anything. They tab in quite nice and solidly and kind of fill out the body of the crane mode a little bit. I think it looks good. Again, we've kind of already looked at it in robot mode, but really like the front of the cab there. Still got the same paint issues and stuff, but you know what? It does clean up really nicely and does look good, I have to say. Apart from the paint concerns, it's a nice design. And then on the side, of course, you've got a bit of this hazard detailing going on there. That looks quite nice. A bit more on the actual crane itself as well. And these little silver kind of stabilizer sections, which look good. I do wish they had a bit of play value to them and they could move or something, but to be fair, you couldn't do that on the G1 toy either, so hey ho. Speaking of the actual crane, of course that goes up. It's on quite a stiff little hinge there. It's ratcheted, but feels good. That goes up and down, and then you can of course retract it a little bit and pull it out again, and then fiddle with this little actual hook just there. So, you know, how is that not fun, right? Like, crane toys equals fun. I know it's one that my son will enjoy, let's put it that way. Now, should you prefer, then in a neat little bit of design, of course, you can just kind of fold that back up like so, and then you can bring in that kind of hand accessory, the claw. There you go, and that just fits on quite snugly like so. And that looks really decent actually, really like how that works. Of course you can swing the crane to the side as well, in case I forgot to mention it earlier, which is nice. But yeah, the claw does look cool. I really like the way that it just kind of integrates really simply on there. Nice little solution for it, and yeah, adds a little something to this crane mode overall. Of course, should you wish, you can just store it again on the side like so. Kind of works a bit better in this mode than it does in the robot mode. Oh hey, and it integrates with some of the MicroMaster bases like Ironworks as shown here too. Then we really should just give him his little accessory back on the side there. That works really nicely in the crane mode. And then of course you can tab in the gun, his handgun, blaster, whatever you want to call it, onto the side of the crane like so. That just has some little pegs on the side of it, and that goes in there. And that kind of completes the look. And there you are. He may be an artist, but he's certainly ready for battle. I think he looks great. I will say that this guy doesn't roll very well. Like, it's a complaint that I have had with a couple of the Earthrise toys, actually. I've not really sort of cemented my thoughts on it so far in video form. But I don't know, actually, if anything, this guy is probably one of the better ones in that all of the wheels do touch. They do actually roll, whereas some of them, you know, that's not necessarily the case. But I don't know, it's just not very freely rolling. Like, you know, I think it's just the way that the wheels are pinned on as opposed to kind of clamped on or whatever, tabbed on, as opposed to being on actual pins like they are on the front here, which just means that they're not quite as freely rolling. It's a bit of a shame. Anyway, here he is with the G1 toy, and yeah, stylistically a little bit different, but I do think that actually this guy, maybe proportions wise, does a sort of better job at hiding some of the bump, like the arms and things like that, than the original mold. But then actually the original mold has some advantages in the chrome. The little piston just here on the crane I think is a super nice touch on that original design, and again, you know, with the hook, the bumper, it all looks fabulous. Like, I love the design of that thing. You know, this one obviously integrates the weapons, stuff like that. So, you know, with the sort of advent of modern engineering, it's, you know, got a lot of advantages in that respect. But both nice toys, what can I say? And here they are with their respective hoists, all looking very nice and present and correct. And yeah, I think the Earthrise pair share a lot of traits actually, in terms of the fact that, you know, hoist is obviously quite oversized versus grapple, and that's true on the G1 toy as well. You know, but that aside, it all works very nicely. And again, I do think that the orange actually on these guys is very similar, just as it is on the G1 pair as well. So final thoughts on Grapple. Well, I do really like him. What can I say? It's a nice design. It's quite simple actually for the size of the toy and whatever else. It's pretty efficient. But I do think that there's a couple of grumbles around, you know, some paint scratches, things like that, and I think it could present a little bit better in that regard. That's a real shame. Some slight inconsistency in some of the orange colouring. Hey ho, but you know, all of these little things kind of add up. That said, as I say, nice design, very fluid, very simple. Got a slight concern about those little tabs at the back, but otherwise, it's a toot. So that's Earthrise Grapple. Now I'll put a link to TF Source's listing for this guy in the video description, and I'll be aiming to get the full photo review up on their blog soon. Otherwise, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.